But really, you know what? The thing that started me on this journey was reading Theo Fleury's book, you know, um, how I lived that life, and I didn't deal with the abuse that he did, but very similar, and I played hockey, made a lot of money and all that stuff, and the cocaine and the drinking and eventually that seed was planted in me, you know. A few years later, I'm asking for help, and I've been clean ever since. So
Wow, congrats. And how many years has that been?
it has been, in March, it'll be 9 years.
9 years. Good for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
You know what? And we're here today. So isn't it beautiful to now pass the things we've learned personally and now share it with the interwebs or the internet?
Yeah, man. It's the way the podcast started, it didn't start with mental health. Obviously, because I'm sober, I'm still doing it 3 years later. But during the pandemic, I just shared a video in my language. I speak Dene language, so people really enjoyed it. We're all inside and cooped up, and they encouraged me more. A lot of people from my own community. That was the audience in the beginning. A lot of people just from my community. Now I've learned that as I've grown, you can't just minimize yourself to one audience, and if you want to grow, right? Depends on what you want to do. That too. When I go on my Facebook now, I just share stuff. Maybe on my clean day, I'll say, "Hey, I'm celebrating," in hopes that
Yes.
it reaches somebody. But I'll post pictures. Even then, I'm questioning myself, like, what really? Why am I posting this? How am I feeling? What am I feeling that I'm trying to get out of the likes or something? Because, I found that in the beginning, that's what really drove me too. It's like you attract people and then they give you the attention through the likes. Oh man, 1,000 views. Oh
Yeah.
man,
It
man,
feels good. It's dopamine hit. Yeah.
I wonder how many followers I can get. I wonder if I could just make a living out of this. And then it went from that to, if I can reach one person and impact someone in one way, like, I don't care. I've got 10,000 followers on two different,
That's a huge platform. Yeah.
TikTok and Facebook combined's got 10,000. So it's, if I can reach one person, that's good enough, man. Well, like, I'm not after having to. I mean, Taya will say, "You're always recording this," because she gets to see everything.
Yeah.
I don't always post everything.
Same here.
But I hate that life, but I also got to do it in order to continue living and earning money for myself.
Totally. Yeah.
I started emceeing events, and this weekend I'm going to be calling hockey, and I really enjoy that. So I'll make money there.
Nice. Yeah.
I do that to make money, and
of course your other jobs and stuff like that.
no, I don't have other jobs.
Oh, this is what you do. Yeah.
I'm a student. I'm a university student, so I
Oh,
get
super
money
cool.
once a month.
Yeah.
From them, and the rest I've got to hustle, man. I've got a language conference that is coming up in Cold Lake.
Okay.
Next month I'll be in Edmonton to speak and share my story.
Mhm.
Or no, I'll be emceeing, and then I go to another event to speak. So the next 2 months we're eating other than noodles. So
What is the Dene language? Where does it come from for the listeners?
very good question to start too. I mean, because I'm still learning, man. That's my first language. I didn't know how much. I did not know, really. I just knew that it was my first language. I always speak it when I'm home and with my family. And ever since I started podcasting, it's brought more identity for myself, but just more knowledge with it too, right? And where the stories come from. There's linguists that study the language, and I've learned a little bit. So we cover a big part of the northern part of Canada, Northwest Territories, Alaska, I do believe, Yukon, BC, Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. So there's Dene speakers in different dialects. So my dialect would be, it's not called it, they don't call it Chippewan anymore, but it's just Dene Suchlene, means the people. And my dialect is a T dialect. There's two in Saskatchewan. There's K and T. I've learned that the K comes from influence from the French people, and that is only spoken in Fond du Lac, Saskatchewan.
Okay.
But mostly T dialect. Lac Brochet, Manitoba, they speak T dialect as well. So my mind's always running like, how is it there T and then there's K there and we're T here and we able to understand, but there's some different variations there and just from one simple letter.
Wow.
And then so I found out it was because the French priests influenced that, and you know, there's a D dialect in a community. The Sayizi Nene is Sayizi is east, so the farthest east is to Dooley Lake. That's what they call the people over there. They have been going through, you know, the cultural genocide thing. The government has moved them several times. There's a long story. I met one of the elders that was part of the group that helped them move to where they are now. Very isolated. You can't even drive in there until the wintertime. And you know, I wish I got to talk to him more. I don't know much about it, but their language is very minimal. You know, I'm not going to say it's gone or anything, but a lot of people they don't speak it due to being displaced from their community and being placed in somewhere else, and you know, because they came from Churchill, Manitoba. So it's everywhere. I've tried to have guests from all four directions. I've talked to people in the Navajo country as well. They come from our language family as well, the Dene people. We have some similarities in our words. Their story is that we went north, and then the elders in Northwest Territory, Delaunay, say they went south. So, you know, I'll leave that argument up for other people, but you know, I'm going to stay in the middle on that. I've met people from Dene Yati in Alberta, northern Alberta, the high Meander River. So I think it's around high level. Maybe I could be somewhere up there.
When you look at all of this, you know, you talk about identity. You know, you started the podcast, you felt like you're coming home again. You know, because as we grow and go through life, we sometimes lose the home. We sometimes lose touch of reality of our belonging, where we come from. What was growing up like? How did you move from that to losing your identity? And then how did you get back in touch?
I grew up in a home, single mother.
Yeah.
I always say now it's because of my mother I'm here today. You know, I grew up in a alcoholic home. I share this too. I'm pretty open about it, you know, and grew up in an alcoholic home. I got an older sister and a younger sister. You know, my dad was around for a bit and he left. You know, there was a lot of dysfunction there, but you know, I wouldn't say I lost my identity. I always had it, but I did leave town. I always wanted to leave the Loche and do something else. And, you know, but I grew up around that dysfunction, and I was that kid that said, I'm not going to be like my dad when I grow up and have kids and all that stuff. But I became my environment eventually. You know, I would started partying when I was 15, and I always had my language. I've been away from home now for 17 years. I still speak it fluently. I share it with people on the internet now. But the part that wasn't around was the drum, the songs. It is very Catholic where I grew up. I'm baptized Catholic. But aside from that, I didn't know much. We're missing that part of the culture in my community. We have the language, but
Mhm.
the ceremony part is gone. So I've been able to find that stuff. Um, and my grandmother was a Dene teacher. She shared with someone else who I'm, work with a bit about language now, and she said they used to have it. The priest took it away from us. So that has came to me, and those are some of the things that help my identity, and kind of help me how I speak and share things. Right? It's not that I lost anything. I've always had it. It's just enforced, I guess, my belief and added to in other ways too. So, I've been able to learn a lot about myself and maybe why I wondered, because there was that curiosity. I was always curious about hearing the language in other places. So I would go on YouTube, right?
Mhm.
Taya lived in Medicine Hat, so um, 11 hours away. I'm on YouTube and trying to find this, but it was always only people reconnecting to their community. It was, could never hear the language. And that was really the driving, force in pursuing the podcast and sharing language just so we can hear it all over.
You talk about your mother. You wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for her. For myself, moms are so important. What was it from your mom that gave you hope and a will to be here today?
Man, like I share with you, like I gotta hustle. My mom taught me how to hustle, you know what I'm saying? We were raised on welfare, and she she did whatever she could so she'd keep me out of trouble,
Mhm.
my youngest sister out of trouble. We always wanted things, and sometimes you got to put things back. Sometimes you got to put things on layaway. You know what I'm saying? Do the cash on delivery so we have money on this day and we got to get it. Right. But she made it possible. I was a goalie growing up and I still am. I still play hockey.
Nice.
And it is expensive to play net. It really is, especially when you're only getting maybe $500 a month. Right. She would rack up the bill at the northern store and make sure I got goalie equipment to play hockey the next year or whatever I grew up from. And I had to play with some hand me downs
Mhm.
and go to these trips. She said I couldn't, she told us I can't afford all of this. You got to pick one sport. My sister picked volleyball. I picked hockey. And that's how it went. That's why I am thankful my mother did everything she could, right? I always tell people my mom, before I went to school, she would give us breakfast. She would cook us breakfast and make sure we're fed, and I would become that lazy kid who just laid in bed. And my mom's bringing me breakfast and did whatever she could make it happen. 10 years later, I'm a cocaine addict. You know what I mean? So today it's because of her
Mhm.
I'm sitting here and talking with you. When I told my mom I'm a cocaine addict, she cried like someone died. I'm in Kamloops. I just drove there.
Mhm.
She still shows up. You know, she's she'll call me a mama's boy, and I'll accept it because I didn't have a father growing up. My dad was gone.
Mhm.
My mother raised three of us until my oldest sister got and gone. Right. So all the times that I look back now, she showed up when my dad wouldn't. She made things possible without the help. She always hustled and found a way, and she still does it. You know, I don't know how I won't ever know, I guess, but I'm very thankful for my mother.
There's definitely a superpower in our mothers.
Yeah, it is, man. It's like, she just always checks in on me now, and in the beginning she was always worried, I think. Like she's my biggest fan, man. Like on social media, you get the notifications, so and so shared the video. I swear she every morning she's sharing one of my videos from Dene Yati podcast, you know what I mean? And then she'll always put the care reaction. So,
I love
it,
that.
it makes her proud. And I know how proud she is.
Mhm.
She last year in April, I received this Queen Jubilee medal. She wasn't there. And it's funny because she says, "Don't let anyone take a picture with you. I'm not gonna be." She had to go uh, she had to go south to see the doctor or something,
Right.
and she's like, "I did the work." Yeah, she did. So th- I'm glad I can make her proud. I don't, I'm not in it for that stuff, but I see how it makes her feel. It makes her, and that's good. At one point in my life, I'm doing cocaine wherever, and I almost died. Now she can enjoy all the work and whatever recognition that she can get, right? Because it's
Yeah.
because of her, man. I mean, it could have gone either way.
When you look back at that person, sometimes you're like, what the hell? Like how dark you must have been feeling, how you thought it was fun. There was no purpose within you. But it's just so cool to meet another guy that's come out of it, you know?
Yeah.
But I didn't have the courage to tell her I have a problem here. I didn't have a courage to tell anybody I had a problem.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. See, how did you realize in life I'm not okay here? This is a problem in my life. I'm gonna hurt myself or hurt others if I don't stop.
Man, and just for your audience too, I don't mean to trigger anybody in using these words, cocaine and it's on social media. That's why
Mhm.
people glamorize this stuff. That's why I use the language. I can't even watch it in a movie now because I gotta look away when I see it. People don't tell you this stuff when they glamorize it on social media. They don't tell you that you might be driving down in Saskatoon on Circle Drive that you're going to overdose after you just spent time with your daughter and her family in BC at a campground. They don't tell you these things. You're just living this life of really make believe. You make these things up in your head that you fantasize about, like you're the cartel or something, and then you just want to be like you're in Hollywood. You know what I mean? I think cocaine does that to you, right? And I knew for a long time, like I said, I read Theo Fleury's book. He had the same issues, man. I played hockey. I did that. I'm chasing women, and I was in a relationship and all that stuff. So the seed was planted, and when it came time for me to ask for help, I had to come clean with everybody, my dad and my mom was the last person I called. My sister knew that I had asked for help, right? My sister knew, and she's like, "Yeah, I had an idea. You're always depressed, always broke, still broke, but I'm sober now." I had this six-figure salary. I worked for Syncrude Canada and for McMurray, so the ego is there. right? The ego, you can access this stuff. I drank and drove everywhere, man. I'm telling you, right? The last time, and I want to share this story too, because I'm very thankful today. My daughter and her family. There were many times where, man, gambling too. I'm just a full blown addict in recovery now. So the last time when it became that I needed to get help, I grew up a little kid in an alcoholic home that saw a lot of fights in the middle of the night, and my aunts and uncles partying, and you know, when it was time for me, there was an incident that happened. Um, my daughter and her mother, they called me and said, okay, something's going on here. And something went on with daycare. And I was like, okay. And I was so angry all the time that I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. So I just skipped to anger. Anger is secondary. And I'm like, man, if somebody touched my daughter, I'm going to bury you. I had been to jail already for
Yeah.
assault and assault weapon and all that stuff. But that was my mentality. And so I made my way from Fort McMurray. I'm on my way to Medicine Hat. Instead, I ended up in Edmonton for 3 days. My buddy, who was a dealer, it was easy access. I partied there for a few days. I barely slept. On the third day, I'm like, man, I got to go down there. It turns out, okay, nothing happened, thankfully. So I had to go down there and spend a night or two with my daughter, because I had to go back to work. And during that time, I would be so paranoid. I drank and drove there. No, this time I didn't drink. I just used and drove. When you go from Edmonton to Medicine Hat, there's so many little towns that you can go in and out of. I got lost so many times, man. The paranoia is just crazy. The speedometer does not leave 100. Every cop I thought that was coming or behind me, the car, I thought it were a cop. But I made it there, thankfully. And one of the things I'm really thankful for is her family. They always made space for me um, in their homes. Her mother would leave, or I would go stay at their grandmother's. And because of them, we have a really good relationship today, right? Because of them. Because there'd be many times that I'd be, just coming off, passing in and out. And, my daughter's heard me share this story publicly. She doesn't like it, and there was times when she was just a baby, I'd be passed out, and she'd be running around, took her diaper off, and all this stuff, right?
Mm.
Here I am. I'm not going to be like my dad. I'm going to show up. I'm showing up, but I'm not present. Little girl, beautiful curly haired girl, is just
Yeah.
playing around all alone. The last time I made that trip, I should have been there. Instead, and 3 days later, I'm coming off high, drove myself there. Her mother left. The next day, I'm passing in and out, and I noticed she had gone to the washroom. She was playing all alone in her room. I'm passed out on the couch, man.
Mm-hmm.
I got up to go use the washroom. I noticed she used the washroom, and I thought, man, she's all alone. She's got a dirty bum. I'm passed out, man. Then I saw me. That's how I lived. That's how I was raised. I didn't want that for her. So I did what I had to do. I called my friend. I knew a friend that had gone through treatment at that time. And I said, hey, Mike, I need help, man. Like, I can't do this anymore. It's been a few years like this. can't do this. And that's how I asked for help, man. It took that. I saw myself, my kid, the things I said I wouldn't do, now I'm doing. My daughter doesn't deserve that. She wasn't put there. She didn't choose that, right? But I'm very thankful for her family that they created that space, even though I wasn't a nice person at the time,
But it's those 3 words, I need help.
Mm-hmm. And then it went from there, man. I had to come clean with my mother. I went from Medicine Hat. I drove drunk and high to Kamloops the first time. I called my dad and he said, you got to do what you got to do because you'll lose everything like I did. My dad was an alcoholic. Every time he'd show up to hockey, he'd be drunk. I can still see him till this day, where he would stand, and I knew that he was on, and your dad's going down to kiss you. You get that he smells like booze, That's gross. So I didn't want to do that.
No.
My mom the next day, right before I'm going into detox, I remember I was on Columbia Street in Kamloops on top of the hill mountain, whatever. And she cried like someone died, man. She cried like someone died. I could still hear her. Mom, I'm a cocaine addict. Yeah. And she brought me breakfast, made sure I got through high school. I could leave town. I left town the next day I graduated from high school. I'm still gone. I repaid her by being a cocaine addict. $500 a month I repaid her by being a cocaine addict. It's a lot of times the vulnerability. I share that story and there's a lot of pain and hurt with it. I've had to, I said, I have another son now. I have another kid. I learned that you shouldn't get into a relationship when you get clean the hard way. So I have 2 situations. And I said to her mother, thank you for making sure we had space, because my daughter's free now. She just, between the 2 of us, there's a lot of times we have disagreements and we'll argue and whatever, but we have a good relationship, and I'm very thankful. It went from a cocaine addict to passing in and out to, Dad, I'm going to spend the night with you in our own place. We live in the same place now. I don't live in Fort McMurray anymore. Right? I'm not on the road. I am, but this is home base now. And, when I sit here and reflect on it, and hopefully a lot of people can relate and they're able to share their story, because that's all it is. We're just sharing a story to create more for men.
Inspire hope. You're not alone. If someone's struggling out there, get the help. It's there, because that story has been repeated in a different household, in a different scenario. Well, it's obviously we have 2 different stories, but again, a similar path.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I do believe the universe brings us together later on in life to talk about this. Maybe someone out there that is struggling can hear this and say, holy crap, if these 2 guys can come from 2 different worlds, meet and realize, hey, it's very similar. Just different ups and downs of it, but that same path, A to B or A to whatever.
Yeah, it's I sobered up 2014 the first time. I relapsed 5 months later, and my clean date now is March 5th, 2015. It hasn't been easy. I don't want to scare anybody, but this is my reality. My first year of sobriety, My youngest sister, there was a school shooting in my community. My youngest sister was hit. She's still alive, thankfully, and a few months later, my cousin committed suicide. Right. We're going home to dig graves. That's my family. I get to spend time with my dad. And as a kid, I always miss my dad too, right? I would blame my mother. It's your fault. And when I was drunk and high, I'd call him and I'm YouTube and music and swearing at him. And now I sobered up. I watch him get married. After my cousin committed suicide, the next year my brother committed suicide. I had to go through depression again. And that was one of the toughest times, man. I had to go through depression. They sent me away to treatment again.
Mm-hmm.
And I got through it. The next year, my son was born 2018. 2018, 17. Yeah. And that year, my grandparents died a day apart, both of them.
Day apart.
I waking up, I had hip surgery and I had to be home. So I saw them last and I go home to Fort McMurray at the time. And then I get up one morning, my grandmother died, my grandmother who I spent my summers and winter breaks with in Prince Albert. I wake up the next morning, my grandfather died. So I've been grieving a long time and I'm going to continue to grieve the rest of my life because that's what grief does. It just shows up. I may not be crying in it right now and I share it, I speak about it so clearly, because that's what I do now. I don't show that it hits me hard on a different day. I just don't. I just go through it in that moment. Okay. It might last a day or 2, 3 days, whatever it lasts. Right.
In that moment, I bet you thought, when it rains, it pours. Like, when is this going to stop? Why is the universe testing me here? In that moment, I'm sure you're thinking one after another.
Yeah.
My brother, all of this, the shootings.
It's funny you say that because the next year my dad died.
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
And and I still miss him. After that, I'm like, man, because they all battle cancer. And after that, I had enough of the life on the road in Fort McMurray. And yeah, I had a good career in Syncrude, but that wasn't for me. I always wanted to help people. So I applied to university and I never thought I would get in. I was just like, in high school, I got a 50. I'm good, but I'm going to grieve the rest of my days and speak about it however it comes out. Before I go into a speaking engagement, I always I'll either smudge or pray and I'll say, hey, let me listen well, don't make me swear, don't make me speak bad about somebody, and and that is it. Share my story and hopefully I connect with people.
Were you able to make peace with your father before he passed? Was he
Oh,
able to see you shining in this light that you're in? And I mean shining because it's better than where you were. It's progress.
He knew. Yeah, I told him he was alive when I told him I'm a cocaine addict and all that stuff, and yeah, our relationship got better. He would call me and we would talk. I would go visit him, and and when he was it's funny, I would get him this phone because we have to go. We live so far up north, not so far up north, but away from any kind of health facility. So he had to travel to Saskatoon quite a bit and for the chemo and all that stuff. So I got him this phone just so I can keep in touch with him, But it barely ever got a hold of him, when he was there, I got him a phone, but he always called and made sure whatever, and he'd come to watch me play hockey. There was a few times he never showed up and it hurt that little boy in me,
Of course.
but he was there, you know. In the end, he showed up, and I'm not gonna look at anything bad. There was times because he got married and he had his own family, and you know, there were some emotions like these kids are calling him grandpa, and I don't even know what they're talking about. You know what I mean? I was going through that sometimes, and I'm like, man, you don't need to go there with that. You just know what you remember and let these kids, yeah, they're right that he was their grandpa, even though he wasn't biologically, you know, but he raised them in whatever capacity that I wasn't raised in, but I don't carry that resentment. It was that grief process and trying to create scenarios in a head, you know, it's so I just wipe that away, and I don't need to remember him that way. It's
Oh,
the
that's great.
times that he would call me and he would say, I love you. I never, we were never taught to say, I love you growing up. And it's funny. I never did it either until I went to treatment. I never said, I love you, Dad. You know, I never did that.
And how many years later was that you finally said I love you?
I saw it when I was 25, I think, or 26. So he was gone by 7. What is that? 18 years, something like that. 19 years, whatever. You know, it never really did. But he didn't either. This is the intergenerational trauma and all that stuff. And every time I'd be like, "Hey, I love you, Dad," and he would stumble. I can, yeah, love you too, you know. And I would hang up laughing, you know. And that's one thing I do miss.
Oh,
That's one thing that would make me cry right now is, you know, it. I understand. I get it. I get it. You know, I don't have to hold any resentment. You know, I've done a lot of good things over the last few years with the podcast, and I want to be able to call him and say, "Hey, Dad, you know, I got a Queen Jubilee award. I don't even know what it means, but I'm doing something. You know, hey, Dad, I just met this person. They knew who you were. My dad was a broadcaster.
oh, okay.
When I was a kid, I used to watch him call hockey. He would be part of the network in Saskatchewan, NBC Radio. Before he died, a few days before he died, he received this book from NBC Radio. He's like, oh, you know, his picture was in it. And somehow I'm doing the same thing. I didn't choose this. I look at it as it chose me because my grandmother was a Dene teacher. My dad a broadcaster. There was many times I've wanted to quit and go back to Fort McMurray because we're eating noodles, man.
Mhm.
You know, I'm struggling to pay my bills. I don't know how to live, man. I've been sober so long, but I don't know how to live. I went from 18 years old and working in the oil field to I don't know how to be a student. I don't know how to live
Mhm.
on $1,300 a month when my bills are probably 3,000. I don't know. I'm still learning how to live, man. So I've wanted to quit so many times, and I'm like, man, I don't want to fail this. How am I going to make this podcast work? Anytime I've wanted to quit, I would get a message or an email, and it would say, thank you for your podcast. I went to a residential school. I'm trying to learn my language.
Wow.
Anytime I wanted to quit again, I'm going through hardships, whatever grief, depression. Thank you for your podcast. I was in foster care. I was taken away from this community, and I'm trying to learn my language. Thank you for your podcast. I'm a linguist in Russia. You're beautiful. Your language is beautiful. And I'm like, man, I got to go another day now. here we are 3 years later. I wish my dad could see that, but in my mind, they're the driving force somehow, if you believe in the spiritual realm, because I don't get paid to do this. I don't, like I said, I'm a hustler like my mother. I'm still in university. I'm doing these things and I just continue to do it, man. Somehow it's them. I'm like the vessel, you know?
Yes, you talk about oh man, the struggle's real right now. The money was great then, but you can't trade it also for a level of peace that you truly have within you right now, and I mean up here as well.
No, I would say I'm going to Fort McMisery because I was miserable, man. How many men are gonna go, or have you talked to? How many men are going to that job and not sharing any of their emotions and only have a way of laughing about whatever they're going through? How many men are just hiding it right now? Man, this is miserable. This paycheck is gone as soon as I get it. Right? So that's why I say that so openly. So someone else says, "Hi, man, I get it." My last speaking engagement, this guy's like comes up to me and said, I want to go to university, but I've been scared too. I got this good job now. I moved up a position. Right? How many men out there that want to do other things, but they can't because they got to provide because maybe they're paying child support. Maybe their whole check is going to child support and they've only got maybe money for food and cigarettes or whatever just to go to the job. Living in a 1-bedroom rented space, seeing their kid once a month. How many guys? I worked with a whole bunch of them. I was one of them. And now I'm in university. Yeah, I'm still struggling. That doesn't mean it's all miserable, right? My daughter, I brought her lunch this afternoon. She gets to it. This is the beauty of my sobriety. She's like, I've had to tell her, I'm like, you want me to fail and you have to go back to, she's like, no, I don't want you. She doesn't have to see me every day. She just knows I'm in the same area and it gives her peace of mind. That is the beauty of my sobriety. She doesn't have to see, she knows her daddy is close by. She knows her daddy's not gone. Yeah, it's a struggle, but you got to see the beauty in all of it. Yeah, you can receive a medal and some recognition here and there. And then she gets up on that dance stage and she's smiling and dancing away. All the struggles I had to go through that year for that 1 hour of dance, whatever it may be, they're gone. It's worth it. So I'll keep going through the pain and the grief and the loss and doing what I do so I can enjoy these moments. Right?
Isn't it funny though when you're, I don't know, going through the alcohol, the drugs? Sure, the money's all there, but but you're miserable. Now you're at peace, but it's like where's the money? So it's like this finding the balance in life.
Yeah. It's some kind of trade-off, like it's a different realm, man. You get to a place where I'm not gonna have a Cat Williams moment here or anything, but it's it doesn't happen often, man. But I think you got to sit back and reflect on these things in order to see it, right?
But that's the universe testing us again.
I almost did. After the first year, I went back to Fort McMurray for the summer. And, it got easy just driving truck again, man. But I was getting miserable. My body was in pain. I have the body of like a 50-year-old now. And so I would fly from Calgary. I'm commuting, and the money's coming in, and I'm living like I was again. But I wasn't happy, man. I getting up and sitting around in Fort McMurray, and the mentality that you see over there, it's just the big trucks, and someone's buying something, and it's like, oh yeah, that's only 3 grand. Only? That's a lot of money, man. You know, there's so many things you have to do to fit in Fort McMurray, and I I I was done, man. I won't say I never, but I hope I don't have to go back there. If I have to go back there to make ends meet again one day, yeah. But today, I'm not there, and I'm thankful. It's given me sobriety, that place. I've been able to visit now and go to these communities, fly out of there to Fort Chipewyan, and visit people that I still consider at home. So
For a guy that's out there in Fort Mac right now, or somebody that's struggling with their mental health, what has worked for you to kind of make that decision to better your life today? And obviously, it's from your own personal story that worked for you, but maybe they can apply it to their life.
in the beginning, it was I was so angry when I got out of treatment the second time. I had a girlfriend that left me for someone else while I was in treatment. So I didn't grieve that. I didn't go back to the 12-step meetings right away. I just played golf. I'm not saying go play golf. That wasn't the right way. But on the golf course, I met someone who's in the 12-step meetings, and I remember I talking to him, say, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a while." He said, "Yeah, I haven't really been going." He said, "Are you cured?" And we laughed, and like, "No, I'm not cured." So I went back there, and I still have elders in my life. You know, one of them comes from the 12-step meeting, and one of them, well, they're both in there, but I don't call them sponsors. They're elders to me.
Willis, what does elders mean for the listeners?
An elder is someone you respect. It's not just someone that's someone that's older than you, that's walked the road. In our culture, we call it the red road. As you live that way, you have the respect of me and the people around you. Well, that is an elder to me. There's two of them. One is actually lives in Kamloops, and the other lives in New Brunswick. So anytime I'm going through anything tough, I call them. I don't do this alone, man. Like, you cannot live this life alone. You cannot. Like, whether it's 12-step meetings or therapy, I was in an aftercare program that Syncrude paid for a long time, 5 years, I believe.
Or even a podcast like this, just talking, picking up a phone, calling a friend, going for a walk, anything.
I think people have, they say the phone is heavy when you're going through something, right? So how do we help people make it easy for them to call somebody? How do we just, hey, it's okay to call me, but in that person's mind, maybe they're thinking, man, maybe I'm a bother, so I'm gonna just isolate and go through this alone, and hopefully it passes. It'll pass, but it's still there. You know what I mean? So call somebody, learn to call somebody, reach out to somebody and say, hey, and if you think you're bothering them, you're probably helping that person out.
So
right?
true. Yeah.
If Zach called me in today and said, hey, I could have been having the best day, but you're having the crappiest day, and you're like, I'm going through this, you help me, right? What did I say in the 12 step? It's a selfish program that teaches you to be selfless, because you got to gain whatever. I'm not saying, I'm not taking anything from you, but that's what happens. People say this all the time. The struggling person is helping the guy that's, because you're being reminded, right? You're being reminded of where it goes and how we help each other. Because that's all it is. It's about helping each other.
Yeah. Has there been something from your community that has helped you from within? So some of the stories or the lessons, especially from the spiritual lessons learned.
I hear a lot of stories, man. Like
Yeah.
there's, I'm a podcaster and people like the communities I visit, and
Mm-hmm.
I hear a lot of stories and of people struggling. I don't record them or talk about them anywhere. But one thing it helps me realize that, because I'm in social work now, and how marginalized we are. A lot of these people in northern communities, they don't have access for someone to talk to. So maybe they see it in me that because I share my story so openly, they're gonna.
Mm-hmm.
I'll listen to them.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
thankful.
Yeah. You know what? People don't realize that there's this, we all struggle. It just, who's willing to show it and share it?
I don't show it in. I've been live stream while I share this story a few times, but I don't go on. I think Snapchat is my only private space that I have,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
because social media, I don't share my struggle on there. I'll talk about it when I'm live streaming or whatever, right? Like you said, we just show the good stuff, right? We want to show people the good stuff.
You're talking about the struggle, but you're also saying what worked for you.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that snippet might help them.
Yeah, yeah. It's one day at a time, man.
One day
Whatever.
at a time. Yeah.
Someday it's like you said, someday it might be 1 minute, right? Because sometimes that minute is so long. You remember your first year of sobriety?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Every year, hey, March 5th. So every fifth day of each month, that first year, man, I was so stressed out and having these wicked dreams. I thought I'd relapse. They're less and less now. I probably have one, two. It depends on how stressed I am and within. Last time I thought I'd relapse in my dream, man.
Yeah. But no one talks about the social circle and how that changes and how that affects you at times, because now you're actually isolated. You are now meeting new people. It's different. You know, the people that you had in your life before, they're not bad people, but they also didn't have the same struggles you had. They didn't have the addiction that you may have had. Or maybe they do, but they didn't talk about it. They hit it better than you.
Yeah, I mean, the people that knew I done drugs, that I was on cocaine, those are the only people knew. I never, and I'm very thankful. See, he's my brother too. He's my cousin, but he's my brother. I have so many of those, you know. Two of the people that I used to run with, sober now. My brother, I'm thankful. Very thankful, man. I have so many memories with him, so many war stories with him. Now I'll be able to call him, and he's been clean a couple of years, I think, maybe 3, I don't know. And I'm so happy, it, you know, I'm so happy that he has chosen that life. And I never said sober up or anything. I just live my life, man. I focus on me, right? And another one of my friends in Fort McMurray, he's sober now a couple of years, maybe 3 too, same thing. He's got a kid, he's got a family, right? We drove from Calgary one time. We were drunk and high, man.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's sober, right? When I sobered up, the only time that I was peer pressured was when I went home, my family and friends. Those are the only people that tried to just have one. And I'm like, okay, get lost, man. I don't need you in my life. You know? The people and my friends in Fort McMurray, I'm so thankful for. Very thankful. Hey man, you want water? You want to pop? All my golfing buddies there, because I played golf. I had to quit hockey because I knew the lifestyle that was attached to it. And my friends, I would go out with them. I don't DD now or anything like that, but I had to when we go out of town to play these golf tournaments for them. I'd go into a bar with them, and they never said, "Here, just have one here." Willis, you want water? You want to pop? We'd be playing pool,
Yeah.
I don't do that ever. I don't recommend anybody does that because it's not a safe space. But the people around me never made it so that I should be a part of whatever they're doing. They supported my decision, and I wanted to stay sober, man. Yeah. I don't go to bars now. I don't do that
No,
stuff.
same here. I don't have a desire. It's funny. We switched that stool for this stool.
Yeah, it's even gambling, man. Casinos. I just I would gamble, and not all the time. But the last time I lost money, and it could be that I have ADHD, but I just have no interest in it now. I have no interest in losing money that I don't have. I'm a student, and whatever job I got to pay my bills with it.
Yeah.
But I lost money, and it was not good, and it didn't make me feel good. I just that is enough. So it's
How do you not beat yourself up now? How did you can look back and say, man, if I didn't spend all that money, if I didn't do this, I would have had more time, more money, all these moments. How do you make peace with the past so you can live today, present, and in full?
We'd be sitting here in silence there, Zach, if I
This is so true.
If I was
That's
gonna
funny.
sit there and say, hey, I know how much money I've lost and spent, and just do the math, man. I had a 6-figure salary. Sometimes my buddy Billy's his name, and I call him Billy Goat. He calls me Willie Goat, and he's still my friend. We joke about it too, right? And he's seen me at my worst, and he knows. But yeah, I don't. My sister, who is also a social worker, she would say, change the story. I would say I'm an addict. I am an addict. I had to go through this. She even, I don't know how she just planted that seed in me, but yeah, I recognize I'm an addict and all that stuff, but I changed the story. I'm changing the story right now with the things I'm sharing with you. I've shared a lot of hurt and pain. I forget that I received this medal, but
yeah. Well, why don't we tell someone about it? What can you put it up for a second, Willis? Let's see it. You should rock it proudly. There we go.
yeah.
So what does it mean, and what does it signify?
I don't even know, man. But it's for the podcast, though.
Congratulations.
It's for the podcast. It's the Queen Jubilee Award.
Yeah.
Right? It's for the podcast, though.
And what does Yati mean? So Dene people
Yati.
Yati.
Dene Yati. It means Dene language, Dene speaking.
Okay.
So
Dene speaking podcast.
Dene speaking podcast. Yeah. Dene language podcast. Either or works. Yeah. So that is like I shared with my dad was a broadcaster, and he had died the year before. I wanted to honor him somehow, but one day I'm driving, I'm talking to my sister, and I just said, Dene Yati podcast. And I was like, oh, that's catchy, It fits. Man, that's how the name came about, man.
Are you seeing the language being lost as time goes on? The next generation?
I wouldn't say it's being lost, but definitely declining. It's so important that people value their language, man. I value my language. And I hope people value their language as much as they value this medal or the degree they're after. Think of your language as a degree that you're after. Go wherever you got to go to get it. Some people want to go to Australia and study the Maori, but they won't go back to their reserve and study their language.
Mm-hmm.
What does that tell you? Do they value their language? Probably not, man. I'm not saying this to condone anybody or to put any negativity on anyone. It's just the reality. And I talk about this all the time. Is my daughter, she's half white and Dene, she's mostly Dene, she knows that, you know. She identifies as Dene. And I have to add Dene and English together for her to get it, you know. Yeah. And yesterday, or a couple days ago anyways, we're in Superstore. I see this Asian couple and their kid, and they're speaking their language. And I thought to myself, man, I don't want to regret it one day when I didn't give her the opportunity to learn my language, her language. Because this Asian couple, they're speaking their language to their little toddler, and he's going to get it. Mm-hmm. Right? You know, and I'm making the excuse that it's only me over here, and right? So we do our best and however we can. And hopefully she picks it up, and you know, she does. It makes me so proud when she can say a word, you know. And then when you talk about people losing their language, I've heard this so many times in communities that if you learn the English language, you're going to advance farther in life. That's what people think, man. I hope they throw that away from their mind, man. It is the opposite. I'm in university now. We're paying money to learn my own language that is on the res. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna go there, learn broken English, being taught by someone that's their first language is an Indigenous language. So there's got to be a possibility that is broken English, right? You know, it's not the best. I'm not saying anything bad about it, but that's the reality. And you're going to go to university and think you're going to go farther and then you're going to learn your language where it's a messed up way of thinking, isn't it?
Oh, you know, we can look back at history, but it's not that long ago.
No. It was just 20 years ago. The last one closed.
20 years ago.
The 60s scoops kids are still being, you know, whatever race they are, they're still being put in foster care system wherever, right? For myself, you know, as an Indigenous person and the child welfare system is broken, right? Definitely broken. A lot of people, one thing that's really interests me too is this past semester was policy. Policy for Indigenous people keeps them stuck where we are. We have to wait 4 weeks for a therapist, right? So those are the things that policy does, right? It's not.
But then it's like, why can't they hire more therapists? Why can't they alleviate the problems that are happening, such as, therapy, intergenerational trauma, start tackling those issues instead of continuing it on, break the cycle. Obviously, it's easier said than done.
Easier said than done, yes.
Of course.
The way band funding will work, band funding is based on population on reserve. Oh. My band doesn't get money for me.
Interesting.
I don't live there. So let's say our membership is 3,000, but only 1,100 live on reserve. The government is going to formulate that and base it on the 1,100 people. So the number might be, let's say, 200,000. From $200,000, you've got to cover healthcare, education, roads and maintenance, and housing. So that's four things, 200,000, 50 grand each. How do you pay for, you pay people $10 an hour and expect them to do a good job? Or like,
I see what you're saying.
that's how band funding, you can look it up. People are going to see this. You can go and find it. It is, I wrote a couple papers about it. So, the
Wow.
research is there. Think about it. People think we're just given money. Man, I wish that was the case, but my res doesn't get money for me. I don't live there. I wish they did, because it would help somebody that lives there, right? And now the education and the healthcare, people got to travel south. Like, I live 6 hours from Saskatoon is my community. People that are relying on the system, or they're on social assistance, and because that's their home community, there's no careers, and for whatever reason, intergenerational trauma, they're there. They need assistance to go south. So that money is going to come out from helping them. Might be $1,000 to get them a hotel and whatever. So from the healthcare system, now you're lost $1,000 just from somebody. So you got to think of all these little things that are part of it.
Do you see people leaving though, or are they wanting to stay in this?
But a lot of people, they live at home and they work in the oil field, or they have these just industry jobs, or maybe they're professionals that go to other communities, and it's not like everybody doesn't work.
That's true.
They're just, that is their home, right? That is their connection. I go home now when I'm feeling it. I don't see many people the same skin color as me around here. I gotta go home and plant my feet there again so I can keep going. You know what I'm saying? I gotta connect with some people, and my res accent has got to be intact sometimes. Right? And I gotta do that. That's their home. I get it.
What is a res accent, or what is some slang from the res?
It's I don't know if I can just do it. It's
you got to come home to hear it.
Yeah, you got to come home to hear it. You got to be in it, right? It's
I love it.
It's a good thing. We don't have trees down here. That's another thing, right? There's trees that I remember last year or the fall before that. I was on my way home to an event. I think I was speaking somewhere, and I got to like Big River area. Everything was so orange and yellow in the fall. I pulled over, man. I pulled over just to look around. And I grew up in the north. Like, I grew up around this. So I'm like, man, it was like I never seen this. Right? Because I was so disconnected.
It's the awareness piece, the surroundings, how beautiful things are, the simple things.
Yeah, it's for the person on the res, the simple things I get is I can go to Walmart or get McDonald's or Pizza Hut and get the stuff that I need daily, and then for me, the things that they don't even realize is the land, the trees, the language that they get to hear every day, right? You see the differences. I'm looking at the spiritual attachment to my home community of language, the trees around, the community, the people, right? For them, for them, it's me being able to have the necessities that they think they need they have it, right? But they just don't have access like I do.
When we talk about the northern hemisphere, kind of what we were talking about earlier, it's just interesting to see is, you know, the stories about the northern lights that the indigenous communities have. You know, it's, I think there's one about the people that have passed on are now up there and you can see them dancing, or and you shouldn't whistle at them or be excited.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
some, I've heard a story along those lines.
Yeah. We were told that when we were kids. I don't, yeah, I obviously believe in the spiritual realm, and you know, I was told that when we die, our spirit goes on, right? So they could be up in the sky. I don't know. I'll tell you when I'm, you know, when I come back into a different body.
Yeah.
But
Don't
yeah,
haunt me.
don't clap or whistle, or if you want to clap and whistle, they'll dance for you, right?
Ah.
So that is the story. Because if you clap and whistle, they'll come down and grab you. Is the that's the maybe that could be the fear that, you know, you put in a child or something, right?
Thank you again, and looking forward to putting this together.
I see.